Good evening. It is February 1st, 2024, and coming to you from Lonely Tree Media Studios in Tacoma, Washington. This is the Best Lamm Sports Show. I'm your host, David Lamm. With me is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
Hello, Parker.
Woo!
They're back.
It's weird. That audience sounds eerily like the last studio audience. That's okay. And they're happy to see you. That's all that matters. And, we haven't done a show since what?
It's been 2 weeks, I think.
It's been, did we do one 2 weeks ago? I feel like we missed one. We were going to do one, and we didn't. Schedules didn't match up, whatever. I mean, you know how things go. But I feel like we were going to do one, and we just didn't do one. And then you were gone, and then I was, working and blah, 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 blah. Life,
Right.
that kind of crap happens. So I feel like we did one on the the 18th. Is that right?
It was just before the divisional round.
So I think it was the 18th we did one.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I don't remember. Might have been December. Because we were at your place for, New Year's, and then
Right.
I don't remember what happened after that. Anyway, long story short, we've been kind of spotty. It's the holidays. It's what happens here at Lonely Tree Media Studios. People go on vacation. There's no one here to cover. The studio audience doesn't show up. There's all kinds of crap going on. But, everybody's got that same holiday thing going on. Anyway, lots of stuff going on in the sports world. Really, we're only going to talk about a couple of things today. We're going to talk about the AFC and NFC championship games and the Super Bowl. We won't talk about too much about the Super Bowl. We'll talk about that next week.
Right.
But then we're going to talk about college football is still actually happening, kind of. And then we'll talk about the NBA All-Star Game. The rosters, we're going to go over a little bit about people and that kind of thing. But first, trivia question.
Okay.
As we do all the time. The trivia question, the Stave and Stone trivia question, is this. There are, okay, in football history, let's start it with that way. I don't know how to phrase the question. In football history, how many players in football history have won a Heisman Trophy and a Super Bowl? And then the second part of that is, how many of those players are quarterbacks? That's the question. That's literally all I want to know. The number. You don't have to name them. However, if you can name them, I will give you bonus points. So there's that. But how many have a Heisman Trophy and a Super Bowl trophy, or Super Bowl ring? I guess not everybody gets a trophy. And then how many of those guys are quarterbacks? And if you can name the last one who did it, I'll also give you another bonus point. So there's that.
Extra bonus point?
A bonus point. That's what we're talking about here. So what are we talking about? Practice? Anyway, let's talk about the NFL for a minute. More than 1 minute. Let's talk about the AFC Championship game because that's what we do here. Is it just me, or does Kansas City look like they actually want to win the Super Bowl? The Ravens had everything going for them. Best record, right, in football. They were the number one seed in the AFC. A dynamic quarterback. Their defense is good. They're playing at home. Everything going for them. They managed 10 points against Kansas City. And that's how Kansas City's won all year is defense, but 10 points against Kansas City is
abysmal showing.
It was, and you know what? Lamar Jackson's numbers don't look terrible. He doesn't look like he did a terrible thing, but they couldn't do anything. The defense for the Kansas City was so stifling. Baltimore has 7 points entering the fourth quarter, right? 17-7 going into the fourth quarter. And while you still felt like, okay, Baltimore's gonna, Kansas City's controlling this game, you still thought Baltimore was going to do something. You still felt like at any minute there's going to be a big, gigantic hole open up, and Lamar Jackson's going to run through it, or he's going to connect on a pass downfield. Something's going to happen to make this game tight. And it just never
Right.
and it just never did.
Just never happened.
Yeah. So how did you feel watching it? Same way? Was it? Did you get a different perspective of it? I mean, I wanted to love this football game, but honestly, it was kind of boring.
I mean, it's kind of boring
Yeah.
because there wasn't a ton of scoring, but
Right.
it was still. You used a phrase when we talked about the other day. You said that there was like tension. There was a constant tension throughout the game, and that was fun. That's what makes football fun, is when you're constantly like, any minute now, one of these teams is going to do something crazy, or do something wild, or going to get right back into it or get right out of it. Like, it just didn't know. So that was what made it fun. But no, it was a terrible showing. It was an on par showing for the Chiefs against one of the best defenses in the league, and it was a terrible showing by the Ravens against one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
So it just all that proved is that the Chiefs' offensive machine is more than efficient enough to overcome a good defense.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a performance where you go, okay, this was brilliant. Patrick Mahomes was pretty good. 30 of 39, 241 on a touchdown. The touchdown to Kelsey was, and there were a couple of throws this way, was more of a, here, let me chuck it out there, I hope he catches it kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a brilliant throw in that it was the only place he could throw it where Hamilton wasn't going to have a chance to defend it. Kelsey had to kind of one-hand it falling down towards the sideline in the end zone. That was weird, but he made a number of catches, and that one later in the game where Mahomes is falling, and then Kelsey dives for it and catches it. That was just crazy. Travis Kelsey, 11 catches, 116 yards, and that one touchdown early, to open the scoring about halfway through the first quarter. It didn't look like vintage Kansas City, but it did at the same time. Does that make sense?
I mean, they were moving the ball pretty well. Like, that game did not have a ton of possessions. Like, it was kind of limited on what you actually saw. So within what you were watching, I thought they moved the ball pretty well and were pretty efficient with their drives. I mean, punts happen and things like that, but I was yeah, you're right. It looked like vintage Kansas City. It just didn't come with 30 points.
Yeah, not counting the end of the half, Baltimore had 10 possessions. Okay, 5 in the first half, 5 in the second half.
Yeah.
Kansas City had 5 in the first half and 5 in the second half, and then the end of the game possession. So technically 6, right?
Yeah.
The end of the game where it was 6 plays, 50 yards, they ran out the clock.
Yeah.
So they had 11 to 10, which ended up being the difference. One extra possession, 7 points. I mean, let's be honest. But both teams turned the ball over.
These drives in the second half: punt,
Yeah.
fumble, punt, interception, punt, field goal, end of game.
Yeah,
It was kind of a boring second half.
And that's what I'm saying is the second half was it was tense in that you think at any minute somebody's going to do something. Something's going to happen. But it never did. And that was the tension part of it, right? I mean, Baltimore, 12-play drive, 74 yards, right? 4 minutes, ends in an interception. And you were like, and that was a big play, and that was exciting. But it's just the interception that's exciting. The drive down the field, you're going, okay, here's where it is. Here's where Baltimore comes back, right? Here's where they make it a 3-point game, and this is okay. And then all of a sudden, interception. And you're like, oh, and that was a big play, but it still felt like they were right there. They had opportunities. What does this do in general for the world's perception of Lamar Jackson? Does it matter? I mean, is he an elite quarterback today?
He's
Yes.
no more elite today than he was earlier this season.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter at all because they paid him. So he'll be here. He'll be here for the next 2 years.
Well, that's true.
At least. So
That's
it does
good.
not matter. Really, the only thing that would have changed your perception of him, because we knew he was capable of getting him to the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
We knew that team was built to get to the playoffs. So that's not surprising. They won their first round game, unsurprisingly. Right? Wait, didn't they? Oh no, they were the bye.
Well, they won. They won. They won the game against the Texans. They had to
The
play.
Texans. That's right. It was the
Yeah.
Texans.
And they
Yeah,
and they
the overachievers of that group.
and they beat them pretty easily. I mean, that
They
was
beat
an
them pretty
easy.
easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then they encountered a team that wasn't built on hype and youth and inexperience, and a team that hasn't lost a playoff. And I'm talking about the team. When I say the team, I mean the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce combo has never lost a road playoff game.
Yeah, that's weird.
So, and that includes Super Bowls.
Right? That's a weird statistic.
Well,
I mean,
no, that's not true because they lost to Tampa in Tampa, so it can't include Super Bowls.
Well, technically that's a road game, but it's a neutral site.
Neutral site.
Yeah,
so yeah, they've never lost a road playoff game. But I did see one stat that I thought was wild. Jim Harbaugh in his career with the Ravens is 0-30. John Harbaugh, the other one.
There we go. The other one. Yeah.
The more successful one.
Right.
The
better looking of the two.
0-31 when he runs the ball less than 20 times.
Really?
0-31.
That's a big stat, right?
He's lost every single time he's ran less than 20 times.
His teams are always built on defense and running the football. That's true.
Defense and clock. And this team did not have a good rusher.
No. The clock control and the defense controlling the other team, that's what they're built on. So I mean, I get that. I would understand that, why that stat is there. Kansas City owned the time of possession, 37 minutes to 22 minutes. So there's that. And the Ravens turned the ball over 3 times. That didn't help. Let's be honest. That was terrible. But the Ravens outgained the Chiefs, right? They had more yardage. They also had a crap ton more penalties. So there was that, which may or may not, have influenced this game. I mean, penalties always are a big influence, but
was it that many more? 8 penalties for 95 yards. Yeah.
8 to
they had a big pass interference, and then they had a 15-yarder on that taunting. So there's 2 big ones right there.
2 big ones. If you tell me that an NFL football team can go through an entire game and only have 3 penalties, I'm telling you that's not true.
If you're telling me they only have 8, I'm also
8 is
thinking
still low.
That's low.
The 2 teams together had 11, and I think that's low. I think 3 is there's no way a team didn't hold at least 3 times in a football game. At least. Just you could call that all the time. And there's pass interference, and there's all kinds of stuff, and it gets wishy-washy, and I don't want to blame the referees. I don't want to say that that's the reason why this is anything, but I'm just saying that is a factor in the game. The penalties called versus the penalties not called, and when they're not called is super important, because you get a call on a drive down the field where we start to get into plus territory, and all of a sudden we get an offensive penalty and it backs us up and we have to punt. That's a big deal,
Right.
If you get a defensive penalty while you're in plus territory, all of a sudden you're in field goal range,
Well, here's in the final drive to end the half, the very first play of the game, they committed an unnecessary roughness penalty. Kyle Van Noy committed an unnecessary roughness penalty, and then 2 plays later, Chris Jones committed roughing the passer. Yeah. There's 30 yards of your 80 penalty yards right there on one drive. Don't get me wrong. At the end of that drive, the Chiefs committed 2 consecutive holdings.
Yeah,
like that one that Smith, the offensive guy, committed 2 holding plays in a row, but one penalty was nullified because they declined it, and because Patrick Mahomes got sacked or something like that.
Right.
No, it says touchdown nullified. So I mean, they had 10 of their or 20 of their penalty yards on that same drive.
Yeah.
So and all of that just led to 1 field goal. It's just, I feel like people want to think that the Chiefs get a lot of bailout calls.
And they do.
But I don't see it.
Right.
I don't see it that as clear cut as, they got helped. I don't clearly see it that way.
I would go so far as to say it's not bailout calls as much as it is some no calls. They're the beneficiary of some no calls too.
Yeah.
So this game starts and by 11 minutes into the second quarter, right? There's 10:56 left in the second quarter when Kansas City scores their second touchdown, and it's 14-7, right? There's only 3 points the rest of the game. For the next 40 minutes, there was nothing. And that was amazing to me. That seemed really, really strange.
Baltimore had a couple injuries during the game too. They lost a linebacker, they lost a cornerback, and then they lost a wide receiver. That's because he punched a bench. But
Well, I mean, you're bound to hurt yourself when that happens.
Bound to hurt yourself.
Bound to hurt yourself. It was not the most entertaining game, but yeah, there was tension. There was tension the whole way, and I just felt like Baltimore was gonna do something, and they never did. And so,
well, you were waiting for Lamar Jackson to have that big 40-yard run, and it just never came.
Yeah, it never really happened. He only had 54 yards rushing the whole game, which is below. I mean, that's less than normal for him.
His season.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
high for most quarterbacks.
So Kansas City wins their, I don't know, what is it, their fifth, like fourth, it's fourth in 6 years.
They have played in 8 consecutive AFC championship games,
right.
And I think this is 5.
Is it 5? Yeah.
I think so.
It's ridiculous.
Because, yes, this is 5 because they have 3 Super Bowl rings, and they lost
recently.
1. There's 4.
Right.
And so there's the 5th one. Yep.
Yeah. They're just, it's just... Yeah, it's a dominance. You know what I mean? And you want to bet on someone else because you see the flashy whatnots, right? You want to bet on Buffalo. You want to bet on Miami. You want to bet on Baltimore because you see the flashes of, wow, this team could be fantastic, and then all of a sudden you go, well, Kansas City just keeps winning. They just keep chugging along. So anyway, 17-10, Chiefs win. They're going to go to the Super Bowl 58.
Sorry, it is their 4th conference championship, 19, 20, 22, and 23, including Super Bowls in 19 and 22.
Yeah, I think it's 4 in like 6 years.
It's like 4 in 6 years.
That's ridiculous. So congratulations, Kansas City Chiefs. They're in it. The other game I thought was more exciting.
It was all different reasons.
For a whole different reason. And I this is the same kind. I'm gonna tell you, halfway through this game, I was tempted to just walk away. I mean, I was because Detroit comes out and looks like they can do no wrong.
Their offense was incredible,
just clicking. I'm going to tell you, there's two parts, two things that happened in this game that changed the game. Detroit comes out and scores on their first 2 possessions, right? And it's 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. Yeah, San Francisco gets back in it. It's 14-7. But then immediately Detroit goes back down the field. Well, not immediately. There was a couple punts. But anyway, they go back down the field. They score. It's 21-7. Just before the half, Detroit has the ball down near the goal line. And they can't push it in. That was huge. That was a huge stop by San Francisco.
A field goal, yeah.
Yeah, if it's 28-7 at the half instead of 24-7, this is a different football game, I think. So it was huge for San Francisco because third quarter comes out and San Francisco says, "Oh yeah, we remember how to play football," and all of a sudden it's a field goal and then a turnover, right? Well, it was a field goal, a punt. They score with Brandon Ayuk, right? 6-yard pass from Brock Purdy, and then the turnover, the interception, and fumble. Sorry, it was a fumble, and then Christian McCaffrey gets his second touchdown of the game, and all of a sudden it's 24-24 at the end of 3. And at that point, you're like, San Francisco has all the momentum. And it carries over to the fourth quarter. They get a field goal, and then they get another touchdown late that pretty much just sealed it. And you knew at that point that it was San Francisco's game. Again, Detroit outgained San Francisco, right?
Right.
They had the same number of turnovers. Detroit had more first downs. San Francisco controlled the time of possession. For all the world, Jared Goff, 25 of 41, 273 and a touchdown. That's pretty good. I mean, it's not great, but it's pretty darn good. Against San Francisco, I want to say really good. Brock Purdy was 20 of 31, 267, a touchdown, and an interception, right? It's funny. David Montgomery, 15 carries, 93 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 20 carries, 90 yards. Who's the winner of that, right? Which one is the better deal? But the plays that you make during the game, Christian McCaffrey has this way of powering through you or making you miss.
Christian McCaffrey is strange to watch because he does the thing you don't expect. It's like, all right, we've got you pinned up. He's going to try and run away from this. He's like, nope. Instead, I'm going to go through your body, and with some crazy immaculate balance, I'll get another 5 on top of that.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the heck? Why did you just do that? Like it just seems ill-advised everything he does, but it always works.
Yeah. Well, he's got that unusual blend of power and speed and quickness. He's all three. You know what I mean? Some guys have two of those three, but he's got power. He's strong. I mean, he doesn't look huge, but he is strong enough to run through you. He's strong. He's fast enough to outrun you, and he's quick enough to juke you out, which is terrible because once you get the ball in his hands, and that's all San Francisco ever tries to do is just get the ball in his hands. Once he gets the ball in his hands, you almost can't. You're almost defenseless. You got to get lucky and get a hand on his shoe so he trips and falls. You know, that kind of thing. Or you need six guys surrounding him. It's difficult. It's really hard. He also had 4 catches, 42 yards in this game. Brock Purdy's feet might have won this game as well.
Brock Purdy's feet 100% won this game.
Yeah. He had that long 21-yard run, but he ended up with 5 carries for 48 yards. So even without the 21-yard run, he's still averaging about 7 yards per carry, which is amazing for a quarterback, right? So he managed to do the things necessary to win this football game. He did throw the interception, okay, but he didn't necessarily turn the ball over a ton. He's smart. He ran the ball effectively. They were struggling. I mean, not struggling. Neither team really struggled offensively. That's the thing, because it's 34-31, right? Neither team really struggled offensively, but you saw issues from both teams at certain times, right? That they had trouble. And you're wondering, okay, so basically one half of football for San Francisco, right, that they played well. One half of football for Detroit that they played well. And yet the total yardage is 400 and something yards for each team, right?
Yeah.
And so you're thinking, man, if they had both played well, both halves, you're talking about 600 yards of total offense each team. But it was just one of those games where I knew Detroit was going to win. I said, you know what? Yeah, look at that. Detroit's coming out. They're hot. They came out and they scored and they were, punched San Francisco right in the mouth. And then that drive right before the half was where I said, that's going to come back to haunt them.
Yeah, I thought what haunted them the most was second half. San Francisco comes out. I can't say San Francisco comes out and kicks field goal. Not the end of the world. You kick field goal at the end of the half. They kick field goal. It's all still even, right? But that's a signaling of like, hey, they put together an offensive drive coming out. Your next drive needs to yield points.
Yeah.
And they turned it over on downs,
Yeah.
going forward on 4th and 2, well within field goal range at the San Francisco 28. That to me was like, ugh.
Yeah, that was a big one.
That's a tough one. And then the next drive, you fumbled it, which you can't see that coming.
No.
Like, that just kind of happens. But to not get any points off that and then fumble that, ooh.
Because San Francisco,
that was a killer.
Because San Francisco scored 14 points off of both of those, effectively turnovers. Right. The one's not a turnover necessarily because you went for it on downs, but it is a turnover in my book.
Yeah.
But the fumble was a turnover. Yeah, they scored on both of them. So that was huge because that tied the game. That literally just tied the game. After that, the next possession for Detroit is 3 plays, 1 yard. Oof. Yeah. And then San Francisco takes it, drives 7 minutes down the field off the clock and takes the lead. Yeah, I think sometimes, and this happened to the Ducks. This is your coach decides that this is our identity. We're going to go for this, right? We're going to, to our detriment, we're going to go for it. And it when it doesn't work, that becomes a big deal, especially in this point in the season. When you have a gigantic lead, if you take the 3, at worst this is a tie game, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but
just a couple little things here and there that they could clean up, but the likelihood of getting back to another
it's tricky.
It's not easy. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't think the NFC is changing much over the next year. I mean, Chicago's going to have some change. They're drafting a new quarterback more than likely. The Green Bay Packers looked good.
Yeah, he did.
Next year, Kirk Cousins will be back. Like, your division, in theory, gets no easier next year.
No, for sure.
So that's kind of tough. And then there's a lot of other like head coaching changes and things like that moving around. But like, this was a good path for you to take the NFC North in a down year in the NFC North, and then try and run the rest of the way. It does not happen often.
No, and
You don't think they have the staying power of the Chiefs to keep getting back there every year.
I don't think Detroit has that
But I
yet.
do like Dan
Anyway,
Campbell.
I do. I like the aggressive nature. You know what I mean? The going for it. I like that. I'm not sold about, with there's a certain time to do it. Um, with a
When you're
gigantic,
up by a
yeah,
bunch, yeah, you can take your foot off. I don't want to say that because I don't want to
no,
encourage people to take their foot off the gas, but take what's given to you.
be more conservative.
Yeah,
Just a
take
little
what's
more
given to
conservative.
you.
Yeah, hey, we got 3 points here. Okay, kick it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you take the 3 points, this is a different football game. Because you're adding to a lead, and it's psychological more than it is just, you know what I mean? That 3 points is psychological. If the team looks up and it's 27-10, right?
Yeah.
That's different than 24-10.
They also stopped running the ball
yeah,
in the
true.
second half. And I think that this was Dan Campbell thinking, man, we're going to do it. And then when he sees this train coming down the road that is San Francisco, he's like, oh, man, we've got to stay ahead of this. And
Yeah,
the best way to stay ahead of something is to huck it. So
Yeah.
I think he just got a little panicked, or whoever's play calling got a little panicked about it, and they stopped running the ball. David Montgomery was their primary ball carrier.
Yeah.
David Montgomery?
David Montgomery. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, there are too many running
sounds
backs
weird,
named
right?
Montgomery.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't there another one, number 88? Who am I thinking of?
Sure.
Played for the Packers forever.
Oh, I don't know.
He was a wide receiver, but converted in a game, and the NFL allowed him to keep that number 88 as a running back, but his name was Montgomery. Hoozles.
Anywho.
They stopped running the ball with Gibbs.
Yeah.
Montgomery was doing good in the first half, but Gibbs was like punching people when he ran.
Yeah.
So I don't. It was just weird.
Well, so here's the thing. The Lions averaged 6.3 yards a carry, which was great. But that was all David Montgomery, 6.2. Jahmyr Gibbs only averaged 3.8 yards a carry. And he did have a touchdown, however, he did have the fumble. It was interesting because they ran for more yards than the Niners. They threw for more yards than the Niners. They just didn't get it in the end zone enough times. I guess that's the bottom line. And that's either credit to San Francisco's defense or the decision making of Detroit. I don't know. But, you didn't rely on the money badger to get you those 3 extra points. I think that's what you should have done.
It's Ty Montgomery.
Oh, the old one, Ty Montgomery, yeah.
Played for the Packers. David Montgomery used to play for the Bears. So you had 2 Montgomery running backs just bouncing around the damn NFC North,
right,
or whatever it is.
Ty Montgomery was from Stanford, I think, right? He was a Stanford guy, I think.
That sounds right, yeah.
And David Montgomery's from Iowa State, so. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, they both just played. Montgomery was mostly known for the Packers. He went on to other teams, but still, yeah, that's why I confused.
So while you had this tension in the first game, the Kansas City-Baltimore game, that was there the entire game because there's this weight of, I think something's going to happen, and it doesn't. In the second game, in this game, I didn't feel that way. Okay, I was like, at halftime, I'm like, oh, well, Detroit's doing great, except for that last possession. But still, San Francisco doesn't look like they can do anything, right? The Niners don't look like they're capable of solving the Detroit defense at this point. And then the second half comes, and after the end of the third quarter, I'm like, okay, San Francisco's going to win. I could tell you that because Detroit didn't do a darn thing after halftime, and San Francisco just started to get hot. If you take away the 14-7 start, right? It's 27-17 San Francisco, and they controlled the rest of the game. That's basically what happened.
To me, I think of it like waves, like everything leading up to the game. Waves crashed on the beach, and then you just watched it recede out of sight. You're like, okay, this game's over.
Yeah.
But it came right back.
Yeah.
There was some excitement about midway through the third quarter. We're like, holy crap, are they going to do this?
Right. Are they going to come back?
And then you start looking at Detroit like, are you going to lose this?
Right. How do you lose this game?
Yeah,
right?
It shifts from like, man, you guys are killing it. You guys suck to, oh my gosh, are they going to do this? Oh my gosh, how are you letting this happen?
How does this even happen, guys?
You start just like looking back and forth, like, what is happening here? Yeah. It was fun. It definitely was the more fun of the two because it kind of roller coasted your emotions around.
And I'm an offensive guy. I like to watch offensive teams score. I mean, I like to watch scoring.
Touchdowns are fun.
Yeah, it's
especially now that they let them celebrate.
It wasn't an SEC game, right? The first game felt like an SEC game, and the
Yes.
second game was a Pac-12 game. I mean,
Yes.
yeah. So, yeah, but it was good. So now you have one of the least visually appealing Super Bowls in the history of Super Bowls, which is Kansas City
I wish they had a gold uniform
versus versus San Francisco. Both of them are going to wear red, I guess. I don't know how it's going to.
Or if the Chiefs had a yellow uniform.
Oh, color rush, right? Color rush uniforms.
Yeah.
Let
Wait,
San
did the
Francisco.
Chiefs ever do a yellow color rush?
I don't think so. But if San Francisco would wear solid red bottoms, red tops, right, and Kansas City would wear solid yellow, it would actually look pretty good. But instead,
Yeah.
what we're gonna have is gold and red versus yellow and red. And San Francisco. I don't know who's going to be the visiting team, the designated visiting team, or the designated home team.
I know that San Fran is the home team,
Which means they're going to wear what they wore
and they've
last week.
chosen to wear white.
Oh, they're going to wear white.
The Super Bowl champion for the past some odd years has always worn white.
Yeah, well, that might be a good decision then, if you're superstitious.
Yeah. So I think that means that the Chiefs are wearing red.
All right, fair enough. Let's go ahead.
Is it recently that's happened? I don't know. My internet's taking a poop. But I'm trying to think if it's just like the last 5 years that it's been, or if it's been all time white has dominated.
I don't know.
Red jerseys.
That's a great question.
Interesting.
That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a trivia question for another time.
Hold on.
Let's talk about head coaching changes, because there's a couple of them that happened. We never did talk about the fact that Jim Harbaugh is now the coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, who actually played for the Los Angeles Chargers, or the San Diego Chargers back in the day. So as a player, Harbaugh was a journeyman. Let's call him that, right?
Yeah.
After his Michigan college career.
Seems like a generous statement.
Played for the Bears, the Colts, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Lions, and Panthers, both in 2001. Only the Lions, he was on their practice squad, and then got picked up by the Panthers, but that was the end of his career. He was a, what's the term I'm looking for? Mediocre quarterback at best, just in college. I mean, he was good, but not great, and it didn't translate to the NFL necessarily. He was okay with the Bears for a little while, but So, but anyway,
he didn't have that Tom Brady level of mediocre college quarterback success.
Right.
Not many people do, though.
That's true. And so then, of course, he starts coaching, right? And quarterbacks coach for the Raiders. He was the quarterbacks coach at the University of San Diego. The head coach of Stanford from 2007 to 10. That was a big deal.
See, that's what I remember him most for.
For sure.
Yeah, for causing the Ducks problems.
Well, right. And then he became the Niners head coach, right, when he left Stanford. And David Shaw took over. Right. And then he became the Niners head coach. And he was successful both at Stanford and as the Niners head coach, right? They went to the Super Bowl, lost to his brother, which is
Harbaugh Bowl.
Right, the Harbaugh Bowl. And then became the Michigan head coach, right, in 2015. He's been there
What was more exciting, the Harbaugh Bowl or the Kelsey Bowl?
The Harbaugh Bowl had the lights going out.
Oh, that's right. Beyonce killed the power.
Beyonce killed it. She sucked up all the energy. Yeah, I don't know.
That's what the official report was. That I think that I read afterward that said that some of her crew had improperly plugged in certain lights up in the rafters.
Not the crew.
And it caused an overload. And their system has safety settings that just shut it down to prevent, catastrophic failure.
We're not blaming it on the roadies, are we?
I mean, you think Beyonce plugged in her own light?
No, but I mean, it's
somebody's to blame it. It's not Beyonce.
It's the Superdome in New Orleans, and we're blaming it on a guy plugging in. You plugged it in the wrong outlet, and that caused all the lights to go out. I feel like that's you know what I mean? That's us shifting the blame. Oh, it couldn't have been our lights. It couldn't have been an issue. It was just that. Oh yeah, you can't plug that in here. What? It's the Superdome.
Superdome's old and terrible.
But it's a gigantic stadium it's been there forever. I mean, it's not like it's something new, and all of a sudden they plugged in the wrong thing in the wrong outlet. Come on. I feel like that's the Superdome trying to say, oh, it's on you, it's not on us. But
so it said that there's a company that monitors power in the stadium. The company's called Entergy. and they supply power to the stadium, and they have this equipment all over the stadium, and it starts sensing like abnormalities, like spikes,
Okay.
and so their safety stuff shut it down just in case. But it was 34-minute delay,
Yeah.
which to me, I'm like, that's not that long.
It is, though. It really kind of is. I mean, in terms of a football game, it's a long time to get cold.
Yeah.
Because you're just not doing anything. I mean, yeah, you're going to be out there warming up and running around, but it's not the same because you're expecting to have the second half kickoff. And yeah, that was interesting.
So one thing I want to know is were all like the concourse lights on? Like, did everyone just say, well, this is a good time to grab a beer?
Right, and the lines would have been terrible.
Or great because you could pace it out over 30 minutes.
Well, that's true. If you knew how long, because I imagine right when the lights went out and they knew there was going to be a delay, that everyone ran. Right to the toilet, but it was just after halftime, so maybe not.
No, because you think they're going to come right back on.
You would assume
like,
that
it goes off, and you're like looking around and you go, "What the heck is going on?" And then you sit there for 5 minutes, and you go, "Well, this looks like it's taking a while. I'm gonna go to the bathroom."
Right.
So I don't think people just saw like, "Okay, gotta go. Now's a good time." So I would guess that if you ran early, you were in a good place.
Right.
If you ran after about 5 minutes, you're in about the same place as like a halftime rush. But you could have trickled up to the beverage stand 30 minutes into this delay.
Yeah.
And those lines probably weren't too terrible at that point. Also, wait, did Bud Light or Coors kill the power to increase alcohol sales?
Right. For sure. For sure that
conspiracy.
happened. I don't know any of that.
We'll get into our favorite conspiracy theories on another day.
Yeah, we'll have to have that show. Top 10 sports conspiracy theories. I don't know. So what do you think of Jim Harbaugh as a hire for the Chargers?
Like you said, he's been successful everywhere. I think he tends to lean defensive versus offensive. I don't know why. Like, he's never, like, no one's ever been like, oh, he's a great offensive mind or he's a great defensive mind. I just think that it's defense that tends to win.
Yeah.
He inherits a team with a ton of talent and a lot of misdirection.
Yeah.
So if he can corral their spirits to not feel like, hey, we've just been like Justin Herbert's been misguided for 5 years in the NFL or 4 years, whatever it is. Like, that could be kind of hard to trust somebody else.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think if he can kind of rally them all together, and if you ask players, the verdict from players are that they love him. So he has the players' respect. He kind of reminds me of a Pete Carroll type.
Yeah.
So I like the hire. I think it's a good hire. I was kind of hoping they would grab onto Belichick. Just that way I could see that defense take a huge leap forward.
Right.
But I'll be honest with you, anything's better than Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
That guy could not. He couldn't coach a JV soccer team, let alone an NFL team.
I like the comment by Jim Harbaugh that he was a little starstruck when he met Justin Herbert. And that's hard to say for a guy who's been in the NFL and he's coached in a Super Bowl and he's coached his team to a national championship. I feel like, nice. But I feel like Justin Herbert has that effect. Justin Herbert, number one, is a nice guy. And number two,
seems like it.
He has a lot of talent, and it's been underutilized in LA. I think that I'm hoping that he finds a way for him, and I hope it is not just becoming. I hope they're not going to turn into the Tennessee Titans. This is what I hope, right? Is that Jim Harbaugh takes over? We want to play defense. We want to run the football. This is Big Ten football. This is how we win.
Right.
And Mike Vrabel's out of a job because of that reason. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm cautiously optimistic. Let's call it that this will work out. But I feel like
it will. Yeah.
I feel like he's got the experience. He's got talent there. You need to bring in a couple of pieces probably, but it'll be good. So anyway,
I'm reading an article about it. It says, was it Herbert's long flowing hair that garnered such reaction to his new coach? And then it says, actually, Herbert had a freshly cut look at the Chargers game.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a waste of an article.
Well, he had to use his Dr. Squatch shampoo, and anyway,
maybe that's what it is. Maybe he walked in and goes, man, you smell good.
You smell good. Yeah.
This is a tall, nice smelling man.
That's probably
everyone's a little starstruck.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I'm sure that those are the words exactly. Anyway, let's talk about other coaching jobs that have changed hands. By the way, the Seattle Seahawks have hired
Oh, stop.
five-time Grammy winner Michael McDonald as their head coach. That was when they first said this. I was like, does he coach football? That is not true. So no, they hired this guy, Mike McDonald, who was the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. He is now the head coach in Seattle to replace Pete Carroll. I the first thing I thought of when they said he was Michael McDonald, I was like, no, really? Anyway.
Yeah. Do you know how I know who Michael McDonald is?
How do you know that?
Have you seen the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Yeah. Oh, kind of parts of it.
They keep playing Michael McDonald on all the TVs in the electronics store where they work. And Paul Rudd walks up to his boss, Jane Lynch, and goes, I finally worked up the courage to say it, but if you don't turn off this Michael McDonald DVD, I'm going to bring a gun to work, shoot everyone in here, and then blow my brains out. And she goes, get back to work.
Oh, my gosh.
So I think about that every time I hear or see Michael McDonald.
Yeah.
Is Paul Rudd.
The immediate reaction I had was, they're hiring who? Michael McDonald?
That's what the Seattle Seahawks actually posted, a picture of Michael McDonald saying, we got our new coach.
Yeah. Mike McDonald, let's call him Mike because he goes by Mike.
He goes by Mike.
Mike McDonald was the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens for 7 seasons. He's been on the staff there, by the way. But anyway, the Ravens defense has been good. It has been. I don't know anything about Mike McDonald. He's never been a head coach in the NFL. I have no idea how this is going to work out. I will tell you, my personal thought is that when you hire a defensive coordinator as head coach, expect your offensive production to go down. That's just how it works.
Right.
And I don't like that. I think that the way you win a lot of football games, Detroit, is to outscore people. You just do. That's just kind of how you do it in the NFL. And anymore, passing and it isn't relying on a running game. 100-yard rushers are rare anymore, right, in a game, because you just don't get enough carries. You throw the football, and you outscore the other team, and that's all you need. If their defense is good enough, then yeah, great. But I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work out. So,
it's not a bad hire.
No, it's not a bad hire.
But he's really young. His rise is meteoric in nature.
Yeah.
In 14 years, he went from a graduate, a GA, to a head coach.
Yeah, and
that's either really impressive or really bold.
Not just a graduate assistant at Cedar Shoals High School.
Oh, I didn't even include that. That's what he was I took his graduate assistant from Georgia in 2010.
Well, but go back a year and he was
Cedar Shoals, yep.
Cedar Shoals High School.
And he was with the Ravens for a long time off and on. Then went to Michigan for 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year.
And then
the Ravens,
in the past 2 years, the Ravens defense has been good under him. They were 9th in total yards per game 2022. They were 5th in this past year. But they have some issues. He gives up a lot of passing yards. His defenses give up a lot of passing yards.
Yeah.
So that's a little concerning.
Which is
as a matter of fact, this in 2022 they were the 6th worst passing defense.
Yeah.
In the nation, and you're going to a division that has at the moment Kyler Murray, who can air it out.
Yeah.
It's got Matt Stafford, who can air it out. And it's got the 49ers, who can air it out. So
it's tough.
It's not a great place to go for that. Now, that being said, he gets to inherit a bunch of really good defensive pieces.
Seattle's talented. Seattle is very talented. They're on the verge of making the playoffs this year. They have a really good football team. And I'm not saying that just because we're here in Seattle, but I'm just saying they have a lot of pieces that are really, really good. They've got the parts and pieces in place. If the right coach comes along, you add 1 or 2 things. I think they're really good. I'm not sold that Geno Smith is your quarterback that's going to take you to a Super Bowl. I'm not.
They're going to draft another one this year.
Well, of course, but
I think if whoever the Broncos don't take, because I think when looking across the draft board, the Broncos and the Seahawks are really the only 2 outside of early pickers
that need a quarterback
who need a quarterback, and those early pickers, in theory, are all going to take Caleb Williams.
Right.
Or make a deal to get Justin Fields on their team or something like that. So I just don't see a lot of need for anybody until you get to about the Broncos, and then a little farther down till you get to about the to them. So one's going to take Penix, the other one's going to take Bo Nix.
It would have been cooler had Michael McDonald been the head coach, just because he could come out and sing the national anthem before the game.
Yes.
Head coach, right? I mean, it would have been neater.
It would have been way cooler.
It would have been way cooler. Not saying that it won't be cool. It won't be. Not saying it won't be cool for Mike McDonald. It would just would have been cooler if it had been Michael McDonald.
Because the Bears pick first, but they have a quarterback, so they might move them. They might trade. Then the Commanders pick second. They could always use a quarterback. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. Unless Bo Nix goes really high or Penix goes really high, like the first three teams, the Bears, the Commanders, the Patriots, they could all use a quarterback.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
Moving along, and this is not the best picture, I just realized, but Dan Quinn is now the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Is that right? No.
No. He's the Commanders coach.
The Commanders. Sorry. He left
the Falcons.
Right. He got fired by the Falcons.
Yeah.
So he's the Commanders coach. I don't know if this is a big deal. Dan Quinn's been in the NFL for quite a while. He's been coaching since 2001.
And he had one really good season.
Yeah.
Well, two good seasons. I'll give him 2 good seasons with Atlanta.
Yeah.
Outside of that, as a head coach, he's been fairly mediocre.
Yeah, but he's a defensive coordinator. That's what he is. He's a defensive line coach, defensive coordinator, and I get it. Everybody wants to have that defense, and obviously Washington thinks they can do that with him as the addition. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know. This is my biggest problem with the NFL is that there's coaching carousel happens every year, and it's the same coaches that get hired again. Right? He wasn't successful here. Oh, but he's going to be successful here. Why? Why do you think he'll be successful here?
I think it's a value thing. It's like we can bring in a guy, and if he's great, great. If he's not as expensive as some hot name.
Well, that's true.
Like, you can kind of take the chance. Maybe you've got some players that already know him and like him, or like, I don't know. It's kind of peculiar, but
right.
Yeah. I don't like the hire. I don't think you should go backwards.
Right.
Very often.
Right. And he was the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. I don't know about Dan Quinn as a hire. I agree. I'm not sold that that's a thing. Raheem Morris is going to be the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know. I don't really know that much about Raheem Morris. He's been coaching since technically 98 in college, right? And in the NFL, he's been in the NFL since 2002. So he's got 20 years worth of experience.
A lot of time, yeah.
It's a long time. It's all defense, though. If you notice, all these guys are defensive coaches. That's what's getting hired.
Everyone's trying to figure out how to slow down Patrick Mahomes.
I guess. Anyway,
but they all forgot you have to go ahead and beat Spags on defense for that same team. So, but also as a defensive coordinator on any team that's orchestrated by like these big minds, guys like Sean McVay, I'm extremely hesitant to think that you had because like I don't doubt for a second that Sean McVay has his fingers on every part of the game plan.
Here's my question.
Like he might be the play caller, but he's touching everything.
Here's my question for you. In 2002, Raheem Morris was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive quality control coach. What the hell is that?
Do you not know what quality control coaches are?
I do not know. I mean, I thought the
know a couple.
I thought the defensive coordinator was in charge of quality control. That's just what I thought.
Quality control coaches. I can speak to it from a college standpoint. Quality control coaches in college, their primary responsibilities are like an assistant, but not paid like an assistant because there's tiering to it. So you'll help uploading game film or reviewing game film or markering game film. You'll help in college anyways. You'll be keeping tracks of grades. You'll be connecting players with financial resources or school resources and things like that. You're basically just ensuring that daily quality is the way to think about that is up to speed, but you're not allowed, quote unquote, to coach players.
I feel like
you're admin. You're no longer coaches.
I feel like that's the Dwight Schrute of
It's the assistant to the regional
right,
manager.
assistant
It's
to the
exactly
regional
what
manager.
it is.
Yeah.
It is a great position to get. It's usually severely underpaid.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the NFL, but in college, it's usually severely underpaid, and your responsibilities are vast and broad. You cover a lot of different things. AC
Is-
Patterson, who's a coach back at PSU now, I think he's a defensive coach, but he was PSU's assistant quality control coach, and then he went to Minnesota, where his dad, another Patterson, different same line of Pattersons. He was
I was
a
gonna
defensive like linebackers coach, and he became a quality control guy at Minnesota for like 4 years, and now he's back at PSU again. But yeah, I remember the first time he told me his job, and I was like, "What the hell does that mean?"
What does that mean? I thought
And
that
he said, "I do whatever the defensive guys ask."
and I feel like the defensive coordinator is in charge of quality control. If your defense is terrible, you're in charge, right? But whatever. It just doesn't sound. It doesn't sound in the civilian world. It's got a whole different, you know, different role. I guess let's go. The quality control coach, right? What does he do at the end of the game? Goes, oh yeah, our defense sucked. We need to find a way to improve it. Who's going to do that? Well, that's the defensive coordinator, right? So I don't know. It just
Wikipedia says that a quality control coach is a member of the coaching staff of a football team whose primary responsibility is preparing a team for games, sometimes 2 to 3 weeks before the actual game. Primary duties include preparing game film by analyzing game film for statistical analysis. It's an entry-level position for coaches, blah, blah, blah. But, hey, John Gruden, Ron Rivera, Robert Sela, they were all quality control coaches at various times.
Okay. It's fair. I just didn't know. I'd never heard of
But they do way
control.
more than that.
Yeah, I mean,
they will get coffee if somebody has to get coffee. if you don't have an actual intern on staff, that's the guy getting coffee.
Do they have to ensure the quality of the coffee? Anyway, I just wonder. So also,
you would hope.
I mean, I don't know. So also, Dave Canales has been hired as the Carolina Panthers head coach. Not that that's a big deal. I don't know that's a premier job in the NFL.
I have no clue who Dave Canales is.
He was the offensive coordinator in Tampa this last season. So he's responsible, quote unquote, for Baker Mayfield's resurgence and the Tampa being in the playoffs, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, he was the Seahawks wide receivers coach from 2010 to 2017.
That's correct.
He was there during the big run.
Here's the funny part. He was the wide receivers coach for 8 years. Then he was the quarterback coach for 2 years. And then he was the passing game coordinator for the next 2 years.
That's I've never heard of that position.
Well,
that's a made up position.
Isn't that the quarterback's coach?
That is this guy bridges the gap between the quarterback's coach and the wide receivers coach.
And the offensive coordinator,
coach.
Right?
Yeah, and the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
He gets coffee for all of them.
Well, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm the passing game coordinator. So when there's a passing down, I get to put my input in. But if it's not,
then
I just
quarterback's coach and orchestrated Gino's brilliant year.
I don't even understand. But apparently, all his time in San Francisco warranted him 1 year's worth of offensive coordinator at Tampa, and now he's a head coach. It's kind of fast.
Everyone's leaning towards young guys, especially with what happened with who's the coach of the Texans this year? Like, not necessarily like I know he was a player and everything like that, but like the coach of the Texans this year, former player, but he's like a younger guy. He was fantastic. He's a defensive-minded person. Everyone's kind of like leaning that way.
Yeah, they're going young, and it's just
D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah. Ryans is, and I get it, and I understand, the youth thing, and that's great because honestly, like I said, for years and years, there were 32 NFL teams, and there were 36 NFL head coaches,
just bouncing them around.
And then every year 4 guys.
Well, all those guys are now getting too old.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's just like all the quarterback positions. All those guys finally retired, and they're not in there anymore. It's weird. It's interesting, but yeah, I don't know much about Dave, to be honest with you, to tell you anything. Tampa had a pretty good offensive year this last year, but he doesn't have a whole lot of history. So
he played NAIA. That's
great. Yeah, that's great. Azusa Pacific. Azusa Pacific. Yeah.
Did you know that anybody can play NAIA?
Yeah, Azusa Pacific.
Let me rephrase that. Anybody at any age can play NAIA.
Correct.
That's what I meant.
I still can. I still have eligibility.
Everyone's got eligibility.
Yeah.
There is no timeline.
They actually are now Division 2, NCAA Division 2. They play in the same conference with Central Washington University. And I know that because we actually watched the game. The only game I've actually attended at Central Washington University was against Azusa Pacific.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, so there's that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about him. Good looking guy. That's all I know. So maybe that's
He's
charisma.
a handsome dude. Yeah.
Charisma will be enough. I don't know.
Everyone's leaning towards casual clothing.
Well, and that's what we talked about. Well, we didn't talk about it, but I've talked about this before. That there used to be back in the 80s, there was a dress code, right? The head coach was wearing certain things, but this was all Tom Landry, right? But back in the Tom Landry day, you wore a suit, you wore a hat, right? When you were coaching. And then it changed. Don Shula, who coached in that same time frame, 70s, 80s, 90s, was a polo shirt wearing guy, right? But not like torn off sweatshirt kind of guy. You know what I mean? I think Bill Belichick kind of changed everything when he said, you know what? I'm not dressing up for you. I don't care about you. And now everybody wears what the hell they want as NFL head coaches. And I don't mind the sporting, you wearing the sporting, the apparel, and I get it. And most of these guys are former players. So a lot of things just don't fit. You look funny in a suit. Dan Campbell would look funny in a suit.
Yeah, he'd look like he's going to court or something.
Right. He would look funny in a suit, so I don't mind him wearing a sweatshirt and, khakis or whatever.
So what I found is that since 1990, the league has mandated that all sideline personnel between the 30-yard lines from head coach to water boy must wear officially licensed NFL sportswear.
Yeah.
So suits, which are not made by Nike,
you can't wear anymore.
Or those are gone.
You're not allowed to be nice. You're not
Although
allowed to dress up
I'm sure
nicely.
if you showed up in a suit,
they wouldn't penalize you, fine you.
Yeah. Well, actually, hold on. Apparently, Kyle Shanahan, the NFL is known for a strict policy. Coaches aren't allowed to wear suits. Only athletic gear, sweatpants, sweatshirts, and players' uniforms are inspected before every game. Shanahan is known for wearing snapbacks and flat brim hats. Isn't a fan of these year's officially approved offerings.
Yeah.
Apparently, he had some beef with the NFL over what he was and was not allowed to wear.
Let's move forward. Brian Callahan is the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. He came from the Cincinnati Bengals as the offensive coordinator. I'm not sure that I don't know. He was there for 5 years, and so he's been helpful in the development of Joe Burrow, although Joe Burrow has been hurt for half of that time. I don't know.
He redeveloped Joe Flacco.
A young guy that I don't know. This is, he's born in 84. It makes him, 39?
This is the year the league interjects new blood into the coaching stream.
Right. His first head
So we need one
job,
of them to be successful.
Right. He was, again, he was an offensive quality control coach for the Broncos from 11 to 12. I don't know. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know. Hey, we're not scoring enough. Somebody needs to turn it up. He does have a Super Bowl to his credit. He was involved in Super Bowl 50. So he's got a Super Bowl ring. So there's that. I mean, but he has zero record as an NFL head coach. So who knows? I don't know how that's going to work out for Tennessee. Tennessee can't do any worse. Their offense was stagnant for the last I don't know how many years. Mike Vrabel's a one-dimensional coach. So it's good for them.
It couldn't be much different. The question is, does he get to keep Derrick Henry?
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, he's not getting any younger. So there's that. Yeah. Antonio Pierce is now the head coach in Las Vegas. It is a good hire. I think it's good.
He did really well with them over the back half of the season. He earned a shot to lead that team.
I think so. And former player, and he knows the ins and outs. So I'm okay with this in terms of a hire. I don't know about Las Vegas is missing some parts and pieces. They're not competitive in the AFC West. And so they're missing something. Part of that was a giant step back from Derek Carr leaving, right? But I just feel like they're one of those teams where I just go, there's something missing. So anyway, I don't know how it's going to play out, but that's the toughest division to come into, maybe, other than the NFC West and the AFC West, right? Two toughest divisions in football. Probably. That's just my guess. Just because of the competitive nature. If you're in the AFC West, you're in with Kansas City. And now you're in with Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. There's no easy games. So, I don't know. Antonio Pierce is a good hire. I think that's right. I think he's going to be a great thing for Las Vegas, but I don't know how good they can get.
Yeah.
It's a tricky situation for him. So it's a tough division, like I said. Long story short, last one we're going to talk about is Jared Mayo is now the head coach in New England to replace Bill Belichick. That is some tough shoe to follow. Is that a position you would take if you
No.
were a coach?
I mean, if I was honestly thinking I'm not going to have that many shots at being a head coach,
Right,
yes, I would take the first one that was given to me.
right,
And I don't think that Jared Mayo does have that many shots at being a head coach
right.
in the league, because no one's looking at this team and thinking, oh, well, it was good because of Mayo.
Right.
No one's thinking that.
For sure.
So, yeah. So I would take this. I would take the job if I was him. But let's say if I was like Cliff Kingsbury, who just took a OC position with the Raiders today, or maybe you're one of these other like up and coming guys.
Right.
I might wait. I might sit on this one. Like Mike Vrabel should sit on this one. He'll get a DC position, then maybe he'll get a chance later. I mean, obviously Bill Belichick's out, but like Dan Quinn should not follow Bill Belichick.
Cliff Kingsbury's been around now. I mean, he was nowhere. I mean, he was the quarterback, right, at Texas Tech, and then became the head coach, and then all of a sudden he's here. He's at Arizona. He's at USC. He's at, you know what I mean? He's everywhere. I don't know what the allure is of him anymore, because he hasn't been overly successful at any of those places.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. But anyway, Jared Mayo, he's a Tennessee Vol. There you go, Tennessee Vols fans. But again, his first head coaching job. His coaching career is not nearly as extensive. But yeah, he's been there. He's been the linebacker coach, and he's the guy. I mean, he's now the one they said, hey, here's who we're going to replace Bill Belichick with. It's a tough position to be in. I still think they're in a terrible situation. The Patriots, I think they need a lot of work to be competitive with Buffalo and Miami. And then, of course, if Aaron Rodgers is back next year with the Jets, right?
Yeah.
So that's
well, and maybe that's what this is for them, is like without hey, conspiracy theory time.
Yeah.
The NFL has a what seems like a diversity issue in the coaching world. So you're not going to compete with Mike McDaniel right now. Right. Buffalo's on a tear, and they looked better than ever in the past, but in 6 games of the season.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers can come back next year. What are we fighting for?
Right
now. So maybe we make this higher. We can say we did this thing, and then in a year or two, when a coach that we want comes available,
right,
we make a push. We make an effort to grab that guy. The problem is as an organization deteriorates from a coaching standpoint, good talent leaves.
Yeah.
And when good talent leaves, that's when you have a hard time grabbing good coaches.
It's true. It's true.
But hey, he might come out and he might pick right back up where Bill Belichick left off, in the good way, not in the bad way, because Belichick did not end great.
Right. Yeah, well, it's true. So anyway, who knows? While we're talking football, let's talk about the Senior Bowl, the Reese's Senior Bowl. Here's my question, first and foremost. Do the seniors at the Senior Bowl get like a lifetime supply of Reese's peanut butter cups? Because awesome, right? That's what I think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a number of Ducks playing in the Senior Bowl. This is like the most Ducks that have ever played in a Senior Bowl, in one Senior Bowl. I just throw that out there, which is weird, right? Oregon's All-American center, Jackson Powers Johnson, which I never get that name right, but I just did. Woo! Is there. You also have defensive players, defensive back Evan Williams, Kyrie Jackson at defensive back. You also have Brandon Dorlus, and then Bo Nix, right? There's 5 Oregon Ducks on the national team rosters, the national versus American. I don't know how they divide it up. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So anyway, a lot of things to be gained by playing in a game like this. There's also a lot to lose. A poor showing in this game affects your draft stock. You are playing against, it is an all-star game, so you're playing against elite competition, right? It is more like an NFL game than it is, a college game. But it's interesting. There's a lot of Pac-12 players in this game too, not just the Ducks, but there are a lot of people in this game that Oregon State's got a number of people in this game. Washington State, Utah. It's good. I like watching these kind of games. I rarely get a chance to watch them. Because they're overshadowed by the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
The Pro Bowl's a joke now, right? Let's just get rid of the Pro Bowl.
It is a joke. Yeah,
But
that's for sure.
But if you want to watch this particular the Senior Bowl, it is Saturday, February 3rd, 12 o'clock noon in Mobile, Alabama. It's on the NFL Network. You can still get tickets. It's $15 for general admission. Just FYI.
I'd go watch that.
If I was in Mobile, Alabama, I would absolutely be there.
The problem is you got to go to Mobile, Alabama.
You can get a suite at the game for $550, and it's 18 seats. Right? It includes 18 seats. I'm like, that's
Does it
good.
include drinks and food?
Okay, I don't know. It doesn't say. I'd have to go further into it. But all I know is if you want like a chair back seat, $55 for like middle of the field, like 50-yard line seat, lower level, $55. Yeah, that's great. And you watch a lot of good talent because this is a game where they'll sub in a lot of people. You'll see a lot of different players.
Yeah, there's a lot of eyes on that game too.
Yeah, because you also have Michael Penix and Bo Nix, right, and others. But there's just a lot of players in this game. It's a lot of talent that you'll see playing on Sunday next year, or getting cut from rosters early in the fall.
Sure.
So there's a lot of things going on there. But the Senior Bowl, I was sitting there looking back at the history of the University of Oregon in the Senior Bowl. Not that many. There's really not been that many players play in the Senior Bowl from Oregon. And then what happens is by the time Oregon got good at football, you didn't stay for your senior year.
Wait, hold on. Are these actually just seniors? I know that sounds ridiculous to say.
So
but is that what they are?
Yes, seniors.
Oh.
And then there's a few others that they have exemptions for, I guess. But yes, for the most part, you have to be a senior to play in the Senior Bowl, which means if you're leaving early, you're not playing the Senior Bowl. So there's that. Yeah, so they have a Senior Bowl Hall of Fame. There's no Ducks in it, by the way. So, and you can go back and look on the all-time list of all the players that have ever played in the Senior Bowl, and up to about like 2000, the year 2000, there were like 5 Ducks, and there's 5 this year. So, it's a big deal. So, anyway, it's at Mardi Gras Park, by the way.
Wait, where is the super Senior Bowl for Cam McCormick?
Oh, well, yeah, he's still Senior Bowl. I mean,
did you read about he's doing a 9th year?
I don't even understand that.
I get it. He got massive injury. Like he essentially missed 4 years of school due to injuries and COVID.
Right.
Like that sucks.
if you're gonna watch this game, the national team, their quarterbacks are Bo Nix, Sam Hartman, and Michael Penix, which is not terrible. And if you're gonna watch if you're rooting for the other side in the American team, your quarterbacks are Joe Milton, Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt, and Bradley Carter of South Alabama, who's playing at home.
Christ. Spencer Rattler will not go away.
He's done. He's a senior. He's gone.
No, but like he's gonna get drafted by a team like
he's not good.
Atlanta or the Panthers, and they're gonna use him, and it's gonna be like, stop.
You don't need to.
Just let him go.
I agree. I'm with you. I agree. So this is basically North versus South. I think that's what the Senior Bowl used to be. The American team is the South, and the national team is the North, for lack of a better term.
Wow, that feels intentional.
I mean, if you're saying that, yeah, but I don't know. It just is what it is. Alabama, Auburn, those are all in the American team, the South team. Georgia, all those players from those schools are in that team. Anyway. It'll be an interesting game to watch. It'll be you don't get to see, if you're looking for one player and to watch him play, you better tune into the whole game because you don't know when he's going to get in, and it won't be for that long because they substitute out constantly. So, you're looking at 3 star-studded quarterbacks on the national team. They're going to play at a max 20 minutes each, right?
Yeah.
just because that's how it works.
Quick
So,
update. It's not a north-south thing because I'm looking at the national team's roster. I'm seeing
Sure, it's not exactly north.
Florida,
Yeah.
Arizona,
Right.
Texas.
Right.
There's definitely some from all over, but it does seem like it kind of likes to ride that line.
It's not exactly north-south.
But there's definitely leans that way.
But if you went to the University of Auburn, you're on the American team. If you went to the University of Alabama, you're on the American team, right? If you went to Texas A&M, you're on the American team. Georgia.
There's an Arizona player on either side,
right, and
which
that's
is interesting. But there's not Georgia players, despite there being 15 Georgia players on this roster on either side.
Right.
Which is strange.
Yeah, it's different.
Peculiar.
It's different. Yeah. It's just they try and even out the teams, I guess, as best they can. So it's north south, but also Maryland is south, which okay. And then the West Coast. I mean, it is what it is. Notre Dame. There's a guy on Notre Dame on each team. So meh. So anyway, there's that. So it's gonna be a game. It'll be fun to watch. I don't know if anybody will watch it, but NBA All-Star Game is coming up. We here's what I'm thinking. We've already kind of run long. Let's save the NBA All-Stars for next week because we're gonna have Super Bowl.
It won't be the All-Star Game yet.
We'll have Super Bowl preview and we'll have the NBA All-Star Game preview. We'll do that next week, but we'll talk about the starters. We'll talk about who's there, who isn't there. That the NBA All-Star Game is on the 18th of February, which is 1 week after the Super Bowl, right? So there's that. And so we'll talk about Super Bowl preview next week. We'll talk about the NBA All-Star Game preview and anything else NBA. We don't have any more NFL to talk about. There won't be any more college football to talk about. So we're getting down to it where we can go in depth on some other things, hockey, basketball, whatever else is out there, and we will starting next week. So anyway, I don't know, right? So back to the trivia question, which we're going to talk about, right? The Stave and Stone trivia question was, how many players have a Heisman Trophy and a Super Bowl ring, and how many of them are quarterbacks? The bonus question, when was the last one, right? Who was the last player to do it? All right, so what do you got? So how many players have a Super Bowl ring and a Heisman Trophy?
Well, let me tell you who I figured out.
Okay, name the guys you know.
So Woodson is the most recent.
He is the most recent. There's the bonus point.
But I knew Woodson right away yesterday when you initially said, "Hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing," and I was like, "Okay, Woodson."
Yep.
Everyone else, I had to really think about. I did think of Marcus Allen.
Marcus Allen, yeah.
But that's the only reason I thought of him is because he's the only person to win a Heisman, an NCAA championship, a Super Bowl, an MVP, and a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So every year he comes up during award season, they start talking about him.
He's that guy.
So he's just always up there in the thing.
Yeah.
Desmond Howard was another person.
Desmond Howard, yeah.
Yep, he's another one I came up with.
That's three.
And then the last person I came up with was, and this is a guess, Plunkett?
Jim Plunkett. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Raiders and won a Heisman Trophy at Stanford.
So I know that name because I hear it here in Denver a lot, being
sure.
a Raider and things like that. But those are all the people I could come up with. So based on those 4, I'm going to guess the total number is like 8 or like 8 or 7.
Okay. So the total number is 10.
10?
It's 10. There's 10 guys that have won a Super Bowl. How many of them are quarterbacks? You know Jim Plunkett. You named one.
I know Jim Plunkett.
Right. So if one of the 4 was a quarterback, how many of the 10?
2.25. Was that right? Is that an accurate rat?
2.25? Yeah, absolutely. 1/4 of a quarterback. Who?
That's right.
What's the number? Give me the number.
We'll go with 2.
It's 3.
Oh.
Yeah, nice try.
I rounded down like a.
It may actually be 4, and I'll explain in just a minute. So when we're talking about people that have actually done this, going back from the beginning, Paul Hornung, right?
Oh, yep.
Paul Hornung was a running back out of Notre Dame, quote unquote, but he also threw the football. So he might be considered a quarterback, but he was considered a running back. He won a Super Bowl in '67 with Green Bay. Okay? Mike Garrett, running back from USC. In 1970, he won a Super Bowl with Kansas City. John Huarte, quarterback from Notre Dame, also that same Super Bowl in 1970 with Kansas City. Tony Dorsett, 1978, won a Super Bowl with Dallas. It went to the University of Pittsburgh, running back, right?
Tony
Tony
Dorsett.
Dorsett, yeah.
Damn, I knew that.
You should have. That was the biggest name. No, there's two big names you missed.
Oh.
George Rogers, who nobody knows won a Heisman.
Wait, hold on. Was he a Raider?
No, well, yes. George Rogers played for a lot of teams.
Okay.
But
Journeyman.
he went to the University of South Carolina, and he won the Heisman in I don't remember what year, but he won the Super Bowl in '88 with Washington, where he was a limited participant.
Come on! If you don't get 5 snap minimums.
I mean, and then you got Desmond Howard, you got Charles Woodson, you got Jim Plunkett. The last one you're missing is Roger Staubach. Roger Staubach. Yeah.
Staubach.
He won 2 Super Bowls, 72 and 78, and he went to Navy. So the moral of this story is there's 10 guys that have done it. 2 were from Dallas, 3 were on Green Bay, 2 were on Oakland, 2 were on Kansas City, 1 on Washington. So if you weren't on one of those teams, if you're a Heisman Trophy winner, you don't get drafted by one of those teams, forget it. You're not.
Well, I mean, the NFL for a long time was dominated by a handful of teams.
Well, Green Bay and Kansas City were the two. They played in the first 2 Super Bowls, right? And they were,
And
dominant.
then Dallas started spending money like
Right.
Dallas does, and then next thing you know, Dallas was
And Oakland was
a good team for a while.
pretty
Oakland
dominant
was
in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, 80s. And
Yeah.
then Chicago would have been another big one that I would think that surprised they didn't have somebody like that. But I guess they didn't. When did they start the current NFL draft ordering process? Has that always been the thing?
Yeah, last team first.
Yeah, is that how it's always been?
Yeah, it's always been that way.
Well, I guess if you're really good. Wait, who was the quarterback for the Bears during their big run?
Jim McMahon.
Man, that's right. Yeah. I guess once you have a quarterback, you're not looking for him really for a while. So, yeah,
Right.
that stuff. Yeah, I got some good ones. I just Staubach and Dorsett are 2 I should have known.
Because you're not a
I would not have
Cowboys
guessed
fan.
Rodgers. Yeah,
Because you're not a Cowboys fan. Yeah, George Rogers is that guy that nobody knows. George Rogers.
I would not have guessed.
You don't realize how good he was at USC. Well, not by USC I mean South Carolina, the other USC. Let's call it that.
This is a good way of thinking about this though, because you could see how far my brain is really capable of reaching back for information.
So
and with the exception of Marcus Allen, who is I remember him because of his information, his amazing stat. Everyone else is last 40 years.
So George Rogers.
That I guessed.
George Rogers in 1979 ran for 1,681 yards at South Carolina, and in 1980, 1,781 yards, which is amazing. And in 1978, as a sophomore, he ran for 1,000 yards. So he's over 5,000 career rushing yards at South Carolina.
Jeez.
Yeah, 31 touchdowns. He also had 43 catches for another couple scores. He was an amazing running back, and at South Carolina, who was kind of meh at the time. In
1981, he put up 1,600 yards with New Orleans.
With New Orleans, yeah, he started with New Orleans. Yeah,
this was at a time where you could literally smash someone's kneecap to pieces on purpose.
Yeah,
and they didn't care.
4 of his 7 years in the NFL were 1,000-yard rusher, and one was 900 yards. So he was right there. But injuries took a toll on him eventually. So
I mean,
they do everybody.
I can't imagine how difficult it was to be a running back 70s to mid 90s.
Yeah.
They didn't call anything. There was no rules to protect you. There's still not a lot of rules to protect you, but at least the equipment is better.
Yeah. And here's your trivia. Here's your little tidbit for the day. This is from Wikipedia, so you have to take it as a thing, but I know that some of this is true. Following his rookie season with the Saints, he testified to a federal grand jury during an investigation into drug trafficking, by another Saints player, that he, along with other teammates, had purchased and used cocaine during his rookie season with the Saints in '81. He claimed to have spent more than $10,000 on cocaine during the season. And that was when it was cheap, back when cocaine was cheap.
Back when cocaine was cheap and easy to get.
Yeah, I mean, so if you spent $10,000 on it during that one NFL season, that's a lot of money. He went into a drug treatment center, blah 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 blah. Anyway, long story short,
I love the the juxtapose of teams and things like that. This week on the Kelsey podcast that they do, they were talking about, because Jason went to the Bills game, took his shirt off, and got on TV and everything like that.
It was awesome.
He went to this bar beforehand, which I can't remember the name of it, but it's a bar. It's like across the street from the stadium, and players in like the 80s would come over there because they do 2 days during the summer. They'd come over there and eat lunch and drink a bunch of beer. And so the coach was like, "We're not doing this anymore. We're having the food delivered."
I hate coaches.
So they would deliver the food there, but they would put shots of Rumpelmans in salad dressing containers.
That's a good one.
And
That's
the players
salad
could
dressing. I
take
never
shots
thought about
of
that.
Rumpelmans. So apparently, if you go up to the bar and you say, "I'd like to order a what's it called, a side of ranch or whatever," they'll give you a shot of Rumpelmans.
I was gonna say, hand me that ranch dressing, would you? Oh my god!
But it's crazy because athletes nowadays wouldn't dare put stuff in their body unless it's like PEDs, right? But they wouldn't dare like do those types of things.
Cocaine's a thing of the past for. I don't know, but for athletes,
it seems like it.
Yeah,
maybe not off season, but
it was excess. It was the 80s, late 70s and early 80s. That was everybody did that. I mean well, not me, but I mean everybody did that. I was 12.
But not me. Yeah,
I mean,
that's fair.
I was a little young for that. But I'm just saying
the big cocaine boom was like 75 to 80.
Yeah, and
like that was when it really hit its peak.
Right, and it was a big deal. But anyway, yeah. So so there's that. Cocaine lessons for the day. All right. So I don't know. It's interesting to talk about all that junk. So I really don't have much else to say. I guess we're gonna end it on that. Yeah, it is a good one. This is all we got for today. We want to thank you for listening. We're going to do a show next week, February the 8th, I think, Thursday. We'll still do it on Thursday. February the 8th, we'll do the show again. We're going to talk about the NBA All-Star Game. We're going to talk about NHL. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl preview. We got a lot of things going on. We will probably, I'm going to recap for you guys, for everybody, all of the predictions we had for the playoffs. We're going to get to relive how bad we were predicting what was going to happen this year. So, because I think at the beginning of the season we went through this and said who was going to win.
Yeah, we did, I think.
Yeah, so I'm going to go recap that, and we're going to talk about how terrible we were. And I don't think it's as bad as we think it is. But anyway, we're going to cover all that and more. We want to thank our sponsors, The Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty Yarns, and Stave & Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lowing Tree Media. We want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.